Hi, welcome back to another episode on the Healthy Wisdom series with Dr. Jen Chen. Healthy Wisdomers, one of the best things in life, in my opinion, is our ability to learn, wouldn't you say? I mean, if there's something you don't know or do not know how to do, you can always learn it, and it becomes part of your new knowledge or your new skill set. So growing up, we all go to school, right? To learn scholastically as well as socially. And it's pretty clear that some fare better than others. So in this next series, we're going to explore the biology of the brain when it's in learning mode, the different learning styles, and learning disorders that are most common in this generation. And we'll begin by introducing an effective method to best retain new information. That's called using your 6 R's. Now, are you ready? Take out your pen and paper as well as your journals for your best results, and pull over if you're driving, because that will not be an accident you want to get into. Or, honestly, you could always circle back later in the day to write all this goodness down. Now, before I dive into it, I must give credit to my learning mentor, Mr. Jim Kwik. Now, I'd come across his material back in 2019 when I was learning with Miss Lisa Nichols through my mastermind group. And his tips on how to remember people's names really helped me navigate through a room full of 425 attendees. I have to admit that I've always had a great knack for remembering faces, but names have always stumped me. So I'd always be saying to people, "I'm so sorry, I'm terrible with names. Could you please tell me again?" And that was the courteous thing to do. But to be honest, if I have to say over and over to people that maybe I've met, a couple times in the weekend, it kind of gets old, right? So when I started practicing, I was shocked at how effective it was, because I was able to actually recall confidently more than 50% of the attendees that I met that weekend. Incredible. It's incredible that I've gone beyond names now, and I've applied the skills to remember the smallest details about each of my patients. There's always, commentaries about, well, how do you do it, Dr. Jen? How can you remember, let alone keep up with all the details about who's vacationing, where, attending what, learning which subjects, and which child is getting their cavities filled? I do have to say, thank you. Thank you, Jim, for teaching me such valuable skills that I can use on a day-to-day basis. Now, one of the happiest things that happened to me recently was that earlier in February, I had the pleasure of meeting Jim in person. And can I say I was beyond excited to be learning from him in person, in the flesh. Now, even though I'd already heard his content several times before, I was still amazed, and I got some great pearls. The best part was there's always room to do even more when it comes to learning, right? Okay, you guys, without further ado, I'll introduce the 6 R's. And if you'd like to get further details, though, may I recommend that you purchase his awesome book, Limitless, which was released in 2020. I have both the Audible version and the hard copy, which he had signed for me. Thank you. Yay! And just to be clear, I don't get paid for recommending his book, okay? It truly has helped me tremendously, and I just want to share because I'm all about sharing what's good. All right, guys, so let's dig in. The first R for the 6 R's is read. Now, how do we usually acquire information? And we generally have to learn from somewhere, right? Well, one of the phrases that I often hear in my circle is that leaders are readers. But to be honest, in order for you to learn something, you could literally get new information from anywhere. You can get it from podcasts. You can get it from YouTube. You can even get it from watching TV, except The Bachelorette or Survivor, because I don't know what type of information you guys might learn from that. So other than reality TV, TV actually has some pretty amazing programs. I do remember one that I learned about, one of my conditions that I do have, from Nova. So some of the science programs on TV are actually very educational, and you can learn a lot, even though, you might not think that TV would be a first choice. So the second R is reflect. Now, to think about what you've just read or acquired and make meaning out of it, that helps us connect the dots. It helps us expand our knowledge of that particular topic. And to reflect on the information that you've just learned is one of the ways that you will reinforce in your brain all those signals and all those neurons that are going to start to wire together. So the third R is to record. Now, taking notes in your own way and not just writing verbatim what's on a slide like most of us did growing up, while we were learning, because nobody ever taught us how to actually learn. To be able to actually interpret notes in your own way and to write it down and express it in a way that makes better sense to you, that's a really great way to be actively learning. So you're not doing a passive, I'm just going to write down whatever was on the board. You're actually understanding the material better so that you can interpret it. So for me, I do a lot of brain mapping. And in brain mapping, we will create almost an art piece. So by the end, when you're complete with your notes and all the concepts and details that you've wanted to correlate within that topic that you are brain mapping about, it will turn out looking like lines and grooves within the brain. That's one of the coolest things. And I gotta say, for somebody who is a visual learner, it really helps connect the dots for me. And it also makes my notes really pretty. So it's something that it's almost like a keepsake at the end. So you're not just, chucking your binder because, it's a whole bunch of just, regurgitated words on a piece of paper, with the brain mapping technique. I mean, I highly recommend it. Just Google it. I'm sure you can find a lot of different versions of brain mapping now. Back in the day, there were just a couple of authors that really talked about it. And it has been a very popular, and it has grown since then. So I know that this is one of my go-to techniques, and I think it will help you a lot. I've had to learn, I think 400 herbs within the span of 3 weeks. And for me, knowing the actions, knowing the, the technical aspects of what herb and where and which associated herbs go with that herb, that to me was so hard. If I had no brain mapping skills, I don't know if I could have learned all 400 plus. So that's something that I would highly recommend you look into if it's something that there are topics in your learning series that you might need to be able to use a particular technique like brain mapping. So the fourth R is to relate. Now, learning can be fun, right? And it can include others. Like when you attend a conference and there's breakout sessions where you can actually teach the material to a partner or a group of partners and relate the information and share it back and forth. I think that's actually a really good way to learn, because when we teach, we have to understand the material well enough, or at least understand the concept well enough to be able to actually explain it to somebody. And most likely that's where you're going to find out, I guess, the level of understanding or comprehension that you have on that material that you have newly acquired. And it's also a really good way to actually learn from other people's perspective and their take on things. If there is something that's unclear, then you can actually ask a question right away and clarify it so that in your brain, it actually forms the proper groove and you don't remember something that's wrong or a wrong concept or a wrong piece of information. So it's a really cool way to really help you retain that information. Now, the fifth R is retrieval, and more so in an active retrieval sense, because what we're using here for retrieval is quizzing yourself or having somebody quiz you. So quizzing each other or doing some type of small testing that's informal. Now, this is an active way of learning because it's a great way to see how well you've actually learned the new information. Through questions, we actually activate the reticular activating system in our brains. And that is a system we'll talk about a little bit more detail on the next coming episodes because this system has been widely researched in the recent years, and it actually is involved in so many different things. So we will definitely cover the RAS system in the upcoming episodes. And the last R, but not the least, is something that I think often a lot of people will tend to try to do, but we don't save enough time to actually do it. And it is review. Review is so important. I cannot stress this enough. I actually recently was coaching one of my little patients about how to make the most out of her time and time managing, and really helping her to be able to carve out more time so that she could retain, learn new material within a small allotted amount of time because she has so much on her plate already. So review. And what do I mean by review? I mean, doing it in a way that it's a spaced out review. So it's not like just reviewing before the test. You literally have to schedule some time. So after you've learned the material, you want to actually give your brain some time to absorb the material, right? So after you've quizzed yourself and done a little bit of active retrieval, you want to allot some time to review. Now, you can review in several ways. You can review through your own notes. You can review the lecture. You can review the material in the original form. Then follow through with your set of notes and review that. And then you want to also then schedule a little bit of time after it kind of gets some brewing time in your brain. You want to come back to it like maybe a day or two later and do another review. And this is what we call spaced repetition, because what you've done is you've repeatedly come back to the material, but in a spaced formation. And spaced repetition is actually the key that allows you to actually consolidate that short-term memory into your long-term memory. And again, we're going to talk about the mechanisms of how that happens in the upcoming episode. So those are the 6 R's, and I hope that you've gleaned a little window of how to get started. If you are looking forward to learning a new subject, if you are looking to get into a new endeavor, if you're looking forward to maybe learning a new skill set, this is a great way to actually schedule yourself so that you kind of have a procedure per se, a little manual per se of how you're going to attack this new piece of information or pieces of information. And I certainly hope that it will help you learn better and retain the new information better. All right, Healthy Wisdomers, it's been a pleasure once again to share this episode with you today. Please take a minute to subscribe, follow, and rate this episode, and invite all your loved ones to join us on this journey. Remember, knowledge is not power, it is only potential power. So we must take action, commit, and do the work to make it real.